Okay, so we did global warming. The scientific definition of global warming is an increase in Earth's atmospheric pressure, or atmospheric and oceanic temperatures, which is probably predicted because there's a rise in greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases include CO2 and methane, and basically this is happening because they're trapping in more heat than what is emitted back out into the atmosphere. So this is increasing Earth's temperature. The cause and effect. Burning fossil fuels, especially from industrialization, an imbalance between absorption and emission, so they're absorbing more energy and heat than what they're emitting back. And this also is because of natural processes like the carbon cycle, and when plants take in CO2, or when there's deforestation, so they're taking away the trees, which take in CO2 too. And it's lowering sea levels and raising Earth's temperature. And then that graph shows the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Industrialization, so that has kind of the cause and effect of global warming today, since the cause of global warming is industrialization and the effect is what's going on now of, with the deforestation like she was talking about. And because in industrialization there was a mass production of lots of products, and this created a lot of coal being burned into the atmosphere, and other fossil fuels like oil as they progressed and they discovered more and more. And this led to, as she said, the natural forests being chopped down for fuel, and cities constantly being burning fuels in their factories. And so this led to a lot more of the burning of fossil fuels and the start of environmental shifts around the world. As you might have, Mr. Sullivan, in health class, you've learned the whole population to pollution. And because of the industrialization, there was a lot more large populations able for large workforces and more foods they're being able to produce, and in cities and such. So since there was such a large population, that led to more waste from people and more products being able to be wasted, and this led to more and more pollution. And since the life expectancies began to rise for factories, and laborers were safer, and food was a lot cheaper, and large populations led to more workers and more production, creating the more burning of fossil fuels and more pollution. So that also affected global warming.
And because of the industrialization, and it resulted in the global warming, and global warming damaged the environment like now. Although extinction is going on forever, but the background extinction should be 0.0001% per year. But now our extinction rate is 0.01 to 0.1%. So it's a lot higher than the background extinction rate. There are few damages to the environment, like forests, frogs, polar bears, and coral reefs. And to the forest, for example, like sugar maples, they're really sensitive to heat, and they're the major syrup industry, like the major trees for the syrup industry. But because of global warming, it cannot it cannot thrive in this higher temperature. And also higher temperature is more suitable for pests, and the pest population will grow, and that will damage the trees too. And because of global warming, the forests will be drier, and because of those pests, the trees will die, and there are more dead trees. And because of these two reasons lead to the forest fire, it leads to a high incident and intensity for forest fire. And forest fire released more CO2 in the atmosphere, and that becomes the positive feedback, and there's more global warming. And for polar bears are most dependent on the sea ice, like in the winter, the bears hunt for seals on floating sea ice, and the ice expands southward each winter and contracts as the temperature rises each summer. And like during winter, polar bears will swim like from one patch of ice to another to hunt for seals, and they store their body fat in their body. And when summer comes, they don't have to like they will fast and they will leave off their body fat. But now because of global warming, the winter time just is shorter, and the summertime becomes earlier and becomes longer, and that will make the polar bears hungrier, and that will that will make the polar bears really weak, and the mother polar bears cannot like take care of their cubs, and they're like less reproductive. So it's like there will be a decline of the population, and because they're going to be more hungrier, they're going to come to the human settlements to find food, and that will give the wrong impression to human beings that there's a population growing because they're coming for food like in the human settlement, but that is actually not true. And there's another possibility for the polar bear damage is because the warmer temperature, there's less sea ice, so they have to although they're like strong swimmers, but it forced them to swim longer, and they will get really exhausted and drown like when they swim. And also like golden toads, they have already extincted now. They lived in Costa Rica before, and because of the warmer weather, the wetlands dried up, so they don't have their habitats, so they just died. And like for the coral reefs, it's the same. Like the warmth killed the coral reefs because they're also really heat sensitive, and for the coral reef ecosystem, like the small fishes, they died because of the coral reefs got bleached. They just died.
So all of environment and population is impacted by global warming, and this is just a graph showing how there's an increase of CO2, especially from the 1700s to the 1800s when industrialization became really popular. So there's an increase in coal and fossil fuels.
Global warming, a lot of people call it global warming, but it can also be called global climate change because it's more broad. It's not just that the earth is getting warmer. In some cases, some areas might be getting cooler, but it's that all over the globe, the climate change is changing. So in different places that might have been colder are now becoming warmer. So it's not just like ice caps melting, it's not just everything getting warmer. And there are a lot of rainstorm and droughts in places that aren't used to these areas. And the Earth's temperature has become more and more stable. However, there's still the increase of CO2, and 75% of the CO2 in the atmosphere now is a result of industrialization.
What was that percent?
75%.
We out of time?